Welcome to my channel. Today we are taking a look at Coca-Cola, one of the most recognizable brands in the world. This is a big company and this will be a long series. So, sit back, grab a Coke, and get ready for part 1 of Coca-Cola. Let's do this. The story of Coca-Cola begins with two pharmacists named John Stith Pemberton and Asa Griggs Candler. Pemberton was born in 1828 in the state of Georgia. From an early age, he showed signs that he was quite the businessman, selling subscriptions door to door for the local newspaper. He would later attend the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, where he received his training, and then returned to Atlanta to set up his own practice. Asa Candler was born 2 years earlier in 1827 in Ohio. His father owned a farm, but he also ran a small business selling books. Asa would often help out his father in the business, and it gave him the entrepreneurial bug. Later in life, he would attend the Cleveland Medical and Dental College to become a physician. But while there, he became more interested in chemistry and pharmacology than medicine. Once he graduated, he would travel south and set up a pharmacy in Atlanta. These two men would meet for the first time when they were both members of the Atlanta Board of Trade, which was an organization consisting of prominent Atlanta businessmen. The two would form a friendship, but little did they know that they would soon go down in history together. In 1886, John Pemberton came down with a fever, and he was bedridden for several days. He called upon his friend Asa Candler to come help him out. Upon discovering that he had no stock of morphine, Candler suggested that Pemberton concoct a new type of medicine that could serve as a less habit-forming alternative. Taking this advice, Pemberton began experimenting in his kitchen and mixing various ingredients. Eventually, he came up with a syrup made from the coca plant, the cola nut, sugar, and lime juice. He took the syrup to the soda fountain at his drugstore and mixed it with carbonated water and gave it a test taste to see if it was any good. He then named the new drink Coca-Cola. With the help of his friend, Asa Candler, who provided the capital, Pemberton sold bottles of Coca-Cola syrup to soda fountains throughout Atlanta. While the drink was not an instant hit, it was well liked by those who tried it. Pemberton knew he had something special here, though, and he wanted to start bottling the drink so that people could take it home with them. To do this, though, he needed money. And since he didn't have any, he turned to Asa Candler again for financial assistance. By this time, Candler had built up a nice little business selling Coca-Cola syrup to soda fountains. He had become quite fond of the drink himself and saw potential in it. So he agreed to invest some of his profits into purchasing a bottling machine and building a warehouse. However, he stipulated that he would have to work in the business full-time and have complete control over its operation. Pemberton reluctantly agreed, as he trusted Candler's business acumen and knew that he could use the help. The very first commercial shipment of Coca-Cola left the Atlanta warehouse on May 8, 1894, bound for the state of Texas. With the business now in the hands of Asa Candler, he focused on expanding Coca-Cola's reach across the country. In addition to buying up more bottling plants, he hired a man named Benjamin Thomas to head up the company's advertising efforts. Under Thomas's leadership, Coca-Cola would appear in dozens of print ads each year, each more creative than the last. One of the most popular ad campaigns that he came up with was the use of Santa Claus as the brand ambassador for Coca-Cola. In 1903, the Coca-Cola Company would make its first acquisition when they purchased the Coca-Cola Company. Coca-Cola was another type of carbonated beverage that was very popular at the time. Asa Candler believed that by purchasing the company and combining their product with Coca-Cola, they would create a drink that was even more popular. However, it turned out that Coca-Cola was actually a terrible acquisition, and the drink that they created was not very good at all. As a result, Asa Candler would decide to discontinue Coca-Cola and focus on growing Coca-Cola. Unfortunately for Candler, he would not live to see the success of Coca-Cola grow. He passed away in 1929, but the company continued to grow under the leadership of his son-in-law, Robert W. Woodruff. Unlike his father-in-law, Woodruff had no interest in expanding the company. Instead, he wanted to focus on making Coca-Cola available around the world. He believed that the best way to do this was to license the Coca-Cola trademarks to local bottlers, who would then bottle and distribute the drink in their area. This meant that Coca-Cola could be sold almost anywhere in the world as long as there was a Coca-Cola bottler there. Under Woodruff's leadership, Coca-Cola would become the most recognized brand in the world and would continue to grow throughout the rest of the 20th century. In 1950, Woodruff introduced the six-pack bottle carrier, which allowed customers to buy multiple bottles of Coke without having to carry them individually. It was an instant hit with consumers and is still used today. In 1958, Coca-Cola would acquire another major brand when they purchased the ownership rights to the Fanta trademarks. This was another wise acquisition, as Fanta is still a very popular brand today. In 1961, the Coca-Cola Company would go public with an IPO on the New York Stock Exchange. This allowed the general public to buy shares of the company and invest in its future growth. The company has continued to grow since going public and is now worth over $200 billion. In 1965, Coca-Cola introduced the first diet soft drink to the market. Diet drinks were nothing new, but most of them tasted terrible. Coca-Cola changed this with the introduction of Tab, which had a great taste and was very low in calories. Unfortunately, it would not be until 1982 that Tab would become a major player in the diet soft drink market. That was because in 1982, Coca-Cola introduced Cherry Coke. This gave consumers a new option for a regular Coca-Cola with no calories. Cherry Coke quickly became one of the best-selling soft drinks in America and is still very popular today. Also in 1968, Coca-Cola introduced the first caffeine-free version of Coke, which was called caffeine-free Coke. This was another great option for consumers who wanted to enjoy the taste of Coke without the caffeine. But it wasn't until 1985 that caffeine-free Coke became a major player in the soft drink market. That was because in 1985, Coca-Cola introduced Cherry Caffeine-Free Coke. This gave consumers a caffeine-free alternative to Cherry Coke. And Cherry Caffeine-Free Coke quickly became one of the best-selling soft drinks in America. In 1985, Coca-Cola made one of the biggest mistakes in corporate history. They decided to experiment with the recipe of Coca-Cola and create a new drink that they called New Coke. New Coke was slightly sweeter than regular Coke and had a more caramel-like flavor. Most blind taste tests showed that people preferred the taste of New Coke to regular Coke, but it was a total failure. People loved the old Coke so much that they refused to switch even when given the choice in a blind taste test. After only 3 months, Coca-Cola brought back the original recipe and dropped the New Coke branding altogether. In 1988, Coca-Cola acquired another major brand when they purchased the ownership rights to the Sprite trademarks. Sprite was another very popular brand, and Coca-Cola recognized this and decided to bring it under their umbrella. Since then, Sprite has only grown in popularity and is now one of the top-selling soft drinks in America. In 1990, Coca-Cola introduced the first clear version of Coke, which was called Coke Clear. Coke Clear was basically just Coke without the coloring. It was a unique and refreshing change of pace and quickly became one of the top-selling soft drinks in America. In 1999, Coca-Cola introduced the first flavored version of Coke, which was called Coke with Lime. This was another departure from the traditional Coke taste, but it was a very welcome one. Consumers loved the bright and zesty flavor of Coke with Lime, and it quickly became one of the top-selling soft drinks in America. And there you have it. That's the history of Coca-Cola. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment below. We always appreciate your feedback. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to stay up to date on all our latest videos. Thanks for watching.